Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. In the past few tutorials we've created this AI race controller where we have people oriented from far away to close up. If we come into it and we activate the race controller just by using the editor for now, that people will start walking towards their destinations ready for the race. And this guy over here is not going to make it in time. I can't remember why he's walking so slow. I think I capped it. But eventually he will time out. And there you go. He's been kicked out. The race will count down. 3, 2, 1, go. And they will start running. The AI currently stops at each point, which is something we are going to solve going forwards. That's something to do with Unreal's quirkiness. But what you'll see is as they come around and they're both deciding to use the shortcut, when they get back to the beginning, nothing happens. Oh, this guy's just deciding to come and invade. But you can see nothing happens. They just continuously keep running because we've got no way of tracking when they finish. So in today's tutorial, we're going to look at expanding this and we're going to add a lap counting system. So if you want 1 lap, you can have it. If you want 3 laps, you can have it. And then we're going to expand that even more to figure out the best positions. So who's closest to finishing. And then finally, we're going to detect when one of the NPCs actually finishes it and we'll stop the race. So let's get started. So, jumping straight in, what we're going to do is we currently have our race controller set up to track each of the races that's going to start. We need a way to track which racer is in what position and what lap they're on. So, for example, if this guy decides that the quickest way to get from point 1 to point 2 is to, run round this way for some daft reason, well, she's going to be on lap 2 far quicker than he's going to be on lap 2. And we need to track that individually. We can't say as soon as one person hits lap 2, everyone's on lap 2, because that's not how it will work. And equally, their positions will also follow the characters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my structs folder in my blueprints and structs. I'll just create a new folder in here called racing. And inside here, I'll create a new blueprint structure. And I'll call it s_racer details. And I'll open it up. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just create our standard character. And it'll be a character just like normal. And this will be the player or the standard one. And then below this, I will add a current lap variable. And I'll set this to an integer. And then finally, I'll add one more of position. And I'll set that to an integer as well. I'll save that and jump back into our race controller. So where we've got the variable of racers, I'm actually going to come and change this type to our new s_race details. And it's going to error saying a lot of things are going to be changed, but that's completely okay. Let it go through and do it. And you'll notice if you hit compile, everything's going to error, but that's completely okay because we're going to fix that now. We'll start at the one I'm in, racer arrival timeout, why not? I'll simply drag the racers in and I'll re-get the for each loop like that so it's correctly gets the array element, and I'm just going to basically reconnect everything to it, and then here we can drag off the array element and just break our struct to get the normal character again. And we're basically just going through replacing the bits until the for each loop is completely disconnected, and we can delete it off and put this back in like so. And that's all we're going to do. So it's a little bit of a setup now, but it gives us the ability to use the current laps and positions later, with an easier way of tying them back. So for this one down here, we've got an array of characters, which is the ones who have been timed out of the match, so they're too far away. That's our soft block prevention in case something glitches out. Then I'm actually going to come and create a new function in here called FindRacerByCharacter, and I'm going to add an input variable of it called character, and it will be a type of character. And then I will drag our racers in with our new struct. I will for each loop over it, just like we did a moment ago. And then I will break the array element. And I will say if the character equals. And then from here, I can just drag backwards. And I want to get this one here. So I can just do get character. And this BP race controller here will get that character there. It's just a little shorthand. And if it finds this one, then on true, I can simply return. And then I want to pass in the array element and drop it straight on the return node to create it. And now I can set it to racer detail. And you might think, why are we adding this to a function? It might be useful later, so it just keeps it clean. So here now, we can just drag in our new FindRacerByCharacter. We've got a big big block of a thing there, but we can actually fix that and make it a bit neater. So if we just come and firstly delete the input pin, I don't know why that one's there, but we can tick the pure function here and it turns it into a nice little box here like so. So we can simply pass in a character. So we'll drag back off the racers and just do a new remove so it's all set up properly. I want to remove this struct. There we go. I'll reconnect the exec pin, reconnect that exec pin and delete that off. If we hit compile, that one is now roughly fixed there. So now we can move on to the next one, which will be our racers start racing. So again, it's the exact same thing. Drag the racers in, new for each loop, connect it up, and then break the struct and get the current character. That's it. Just like that. Now I can delete these two off, make some more space, and then put this back up, like so. That one's all good, so we can hit compile. We can move to the next one, which is race countdown, which has nothing on it, so we're all good. So now we can jump back to the event graph and we can just touch up this little bit. So on here, we'll just, for each loop again, connect it up, hold control, and we can just drag the arrows around, make it a bit easier. And then it wants the character connected to there, so we can just drag this up, make some space, and do break, and we can connect the character to it like so to get the component. Don't know, we've got one over here. So racers, we'll just get the length of it. It will still have a length, it'll just be a different data type. There we go. If we hit compile this time, boom, everything is now resolved. So what was the purpose of doing all of that? And the real reason is we now have a way on each character that we need to reassign to actually say what lap they are, what position they are, and basically have some more stats that we can play with. So next, what we need to do is we actually need to detect when the NPCs have hit this patrol point for the final lap's time. And you might be thinking, well, how's the player going to do this? Because the player doesn't use the state tree. We are going to have to create basically two systems. One for the player to run through and activate triggers, because if you think of a game, I've actually got a screenshot of it over here, like Midnight Club, you have these big markers here. When the NPCs hit it, it doesn't matter. You don't really need to know if the NPCs hit it. You only want to know when the player hits it to get rid of it, because the NPCs don't need a visual cue. And you have the same on Grand Theft Auto here. These beacons don't disappear when an NPC hits it. So that's why we're going to create two systems. The NPCs are just going to follow a spline, that's it. And we'll set some code in a moment to detect when they hit the final spline point. Whereas the player, in the next episode of this tutorial series, we're going to make it so we spawn markers in that the player hits. It's going to be super lightweight and it's going to work really nicely. So, how do we detect when an NPC is hit this one here? On my previous tutorial of creating a follow NPC quest, which went down really well, we added this event dispatcher here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's completely okay. Assuming you've been following this race series and you've followed the state part to create a patrol point, all we've done on the NPC is added a event dispatcher called onNewPatrolPointAssign. And if I just search for this, all we've done is on the task of get next patrol point, we're just simply telling the NPC when we've called a new one. And that means anything can bind to this and detect when an NPC is changing patrol points. That's all it does, super simple. But what it means is when we come into our race controller, if we come to our start running, we can actually get the current racer and we can bind to this option in order to detect when they've hit the new racing point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag in the local variable here of current racer. And unfortunately, we can't actually get the event dispatcher via an interface. That's not how it works with those. So what I am going to do just in here is cast to the BP NPC. Now, because this character's already loaded in memory, and the NPCs are pretty much always going to be a part of the race controller, I'm not too worried about this cast taking too much memory up. Whereas we'd normally use an interface for something like this. But now that we've got this, we can simply drag off of this and do assign on new patrol point assigned. And we want the bind there. So bind event to new patrol point. From the event, we will simply create an event. And in here, I'll just say create a matching function. There we go. So it's automatically generated everything we need. So how are we going to actually detect when an NPC has reached a final destination? So this is actually going to tell us when they start to go to that patrol point. So for example, if we are here, we get a new patrol point, which is that one there. But we haven't finished the race yet. We need to detect when we've hit that, and then we've got another one. And that's when we've changed over to it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and find my get new patrol point code, my get next patrol point code here. If you're using behavior trees, basically anything that gets your next patrol point. What I'm going to do is, before we pass in the new patrol point here, what I'm actually going to do is get the current actor to follow, and I'm going to cache it to a local variable called old patrol point, and then I'm going to come and update this event dispatcher to have an old one. So I'll press Control P and search for my BP NPC, and then on this new patrol point assigned down here, I'm just going to simply rename this one to new patrol point, and then I'll add another one directly under it called old patrol point. So we've got a before and after of what they're trying to do. I'll set its data type to BP patrol point, just the standard one. And now I can hit compile and save. Now it shouldn't really matter in here when we're calling it, that's all good. But on our get next patrol point, you can see it wants to know where this is going. That's going to the new one. And you'll notice we can't actually connect it to this old patrol point because our old patrol point is a patrol point, but the old patrol point variable we've got is an actor, because we don't really need to store anything specific there. So we could cast to it. That is one way of doing it. But equally, we've got this function saying get next patrol point, which exports out the patrol point. So if we open up this BPI patrol points here, we've got the get next. I'm just going to add a new function called get current. And I'll make sure it outputs a patrol point, and it'll be a type of BP patrol point. And all this is just a dead simple interface that we've created for the patrol points. And then I'm going to open the BP patrol point, which is our actual blueprint. And you'll see we've now got this interface here of get current. Why get current? Oh, I've renamed it. Get current patrol point. There we go. Compile and save. And you'll see in here we now have get current patrol point, in which case we can just return self, just like that. And now if we hit compile and save, back on our get next patrol point, we can now drag off the actor to follow, and we can call get current patrol point. And we can pass this in to the set of the old one here. So just going back over this, what we're doing is the part of our state tree or your behavior tree, which is getting the next patrol point. So when you arrive here, it says get the next one, which will be that one. You arrive here, it says get the next one, it'll be that one. Before we set that to get the next patrol point, we're caching the old one. And then when we tell the NPC, hey, you've got a new patrol point, we're also passing in the old one for them by storing it in this old patrol point. So if we come and rename this to a BP patrol point data type, change variable, it will say it's going to error. That's completely fine. If we hit compile, you'll see it'll all allow it. And then this one here will connect to that lightning. So what that now means is every time we tell the NPC, hey, you've been assigned a new patrol point, here's your old one. Back on our race controller, if we delete this function off and then go back to our racer start racing and we'll recreate this function, we now have the old one there. So if we drag off of this and do equals equals and put in the starting patrol point, like so, and connect it up, we now have a way of detecting when that NPC has successfully hit that patrol point. So they've arrived back at the first one. So let's give this a test and make sure we're correct. So off of true, I'll just print off saying racer hit the finish line. And then false, we'll just add on saying racer is still running. Now, if we compile and save and go and try it, we should see print statements when the NPCs successfully arrive at each individual area. So you'll see they're all going to it, and then we just have to wait for the delay. There we go. So it's been kicked out. It's counting down, and you'll see it will immediately print racer has hit the finish line straight away. Let's just open the output log so you can see it counted down, then they both hit the finish line. Why is that? Well, that is because they were stood here. They were told to go to this one, which made this one their old one. But that's okay, because we can use that to our advantage in a moment. But if we carry on playing now, don't even need to be in there, we can follow that. Let's wait for them to run round. Can we give him a speed boost and just make him like super fast? There you go, I've just sped him up a little. You'll see, we'll get a print statement. Racer has just hit the finish line. There we go. So we've just detected when them two have just hit the finishing line. So now we can increment the lap counter, and when it hits the max amount of laps, we can stop the race, declare a winner. So back on our race controller here, when the racer hits the finishing line, that means they've completed a full lap. So what I'm going to do is drag in our racers, and you'll notice we don't actually have a way of detecting which racer has actually hit it, at least in this function. If we did it in here, we could just use the current racer, but we need a way of passing it through, saying this racer has hit this patrol point, they're coming from this patrol point. So can you guess how we're going to do it? For those of you that are saying exactly the same way we've just done it, you are spot on. It's not a trick question. If I come back to our NPC and select our on patrol point assign, I'm simply just going to add a new parameter of NPC. And I'll set it to our type of BPNPC, because that'll just help stuff later. And I'll hit compile and save. Then back on our get next patrol point, the NPC owner, which is already cast there, we will just pass into the NPC. Then back on our race controller, we will just recreate this function like so. And then we can go and grab all the juicy stuff out of here, look, and paste it into here. Connect it all up to the old patrol point like so. But now we have our NPC. I'll just delete the old function. So if we just drag in our FindRacerByCharacter function that we created earlier, so it's now in use twice, we can drag off the character and do get NPC. And because that NPC is a type of character, that will also allow it to work. And now we have the detail, so we can break off of it. And now we can set the lap position. So all I'm going to do is drag off of that and do increment int, just like so. We'll pass it up to the true here to say they have just successfully passed the finish line. But then how do we reset it back on here? So what we need to do is drag the racers, and we can drag off and do set array element, like so. It will say which array element are you wanting to set. So for us, we need to actually populate the item. So I'm going to drag this down, and instead of breaking it, I'm simply going to drag off and do set members in race details. I'll connect this up here. Then you can see in the details, it'll say which property are you wanting to set. I will set the current lap. Let's jiggle these around a little bit. Like so. So we are getting the racer by the character, getting the current lap that they're on, incrementing it. We're going to pass the increment to the current lap there. So now we've got a nice easy way of updating it like so. We can pass this struct out into the item to say update this, but we need to say at what index it is. So to make that make more sense, because I know it's a little bit confusing at first, when you're updating a structure like we are doing, you can't just set the variable like that. It won't let you do it. Even if we incremented it there to a normal variable, it would update it. Structures don't work that way. You have to call set members like that to change the members inside of it. And it gives you a nice quick interface to hide or show things. And then once you've changed it, you need to reset it back in the array. So the index is on the race controller here. We need to say whether it's 0, 1, or 2, just there. Easiest way to do that, if we edit our FindRacerByCharacter, on the return node, we will just drag down the array index and put it into it like so. Rename it to index. For the other version, it's not going to matter. We don't really need it. But now in our auto-generated function, we now have an index of which one they need to update. So where do they exist in the array? I'm also going to tick size to fit. That just makes sure if you change anything greatly, it works nicely. And then we can hit compile and save. So in theory, we can now try this out. So if I press play, I'll start the race ticking. But what I'm going to do is open up the characters like so. So we can see the laps. So when it starts counting down, there we go. 3, 2, 1. And you'll see this will instantly go up on the lap. There we go. So he's run off, she's run off. They're now on lap 2. And you'll see as they come back and they hit the finish line, as soon as they get a new patrol point, it will go up to lap 3. And we can successfully say that person has finished it. But you might be saying, we only want 1 lap for that. Why did it go all the way up to 3? So let's go and remove that default, because it's actually going to work in our favour to not have it there. Instead of starting at lap 1, we'll start at lap 0. And now that means they will get to lap 2. So as soon as they start, they'll be at lap 0. As soon as they go, it will be lap 1, so they're on the first lap, which is correct. they'll run round, they'll come back, and then as soon as they hit this, it'll be lap 2. And I know there's some delays in them getting there, waiting and running. We will look at fixing that shortly. It's just we've got to really change how the straight tree works. The main reason is Unreal's go to location node makes them stop and then rerun. And it's going to be a little bit of a delay there. We've added an artificial delay as well for them to do actions, but we're going to look at changing that and making them seamless, because you don't want to stop in the middle of a checkpoint. So how do we declare that there's a winner? So back on our race controller, just add an integer called max laps, and we'll set it to a type of int. I'll make it instance editable, and I'll default it to 1, so it never. And then after we've set the array element here, what we can do is drag the max laps in. We can make some space just after this, and we'll promote the struct out to a local variable called current racer updated details. So a nice long name, just so we know what it means. Connect it all up. But now, what we can do is get the current racer updated details. We can break on this, and we've got the current lap. So if we say, is the current lap more than the max laps, and we don't want to say more than or equal to, because if the max laps is 1 and it's equal to 1, then it'll flag at the start of the game because we go from 0 to 1 when they start running. We'll add a branch here. Then if one person has reached it, then we can declare them as the winner. So I'm just going to create a temporary function here called race finish, and I'll add an input of type character. So we'll just call it winner. And then from here, I'll just print off, and I'll drag back off the string and do format text and do append. And we will say this object or this character is the winner. Now, you've got a decision to make at this point. What do you want to do with all your other racers? So in some games, as soon as you get one winner, all the others just stop. They'll start walking somewhere else because that's it. In most games, I believe that they also finish, but because a winner's already been decided, they don't win anything. They just get there, they'll say some grumpy text, and they'll walk away. Oh, I should have won that, something like that. I'm going to go that way. If you want all your racers to finish as soon as one finishes, simply loop over your racers here, and then tell them all to just stop current action, set their movement mode to stop, or not walking, or whatever it is. Super easy. However, for me, like I say, I want the first one to finish, I want them to cheer, do whatever they want, and I want the others to keep running until the winner's been decided. So I'm going to add a variable down here called winner, and I'll set it to a type of character, and I'm going to keep this as private because we don't actually need it doing anything. We don't need anything else accessing it. But what I am going to do is set it to our winner here. We've got two things called winner. Oh, that's not a good idea. Winning character. There we go. I'll rename it. And I'll set this to our get winner, like so. Then right at the beginning, I'm going to make some space, and I'll just do get winner here to make it a bit neater. And then I'm going to say, is winning character set? So has it got a current winner? I'll simply right click and convert to a validated get, like so. If it hasn't got a winner, then we know that we can assign the winner like that. Print out you've won. All good. But if it has got a winner, then we can assume that they're a loser. So instead of winner, I'm actually going to call it finished character, because I think it makes a lot more sense because they're not just winning when they call this. And then I'll copy this print string for now down here, and I'll just paste it up here. And instead of is the winner, is a loser, like so. Because you might have multiple losers. You're not going to have multiple winners, like so. Finally, back on our BP race controller, where the max laps exceeds, we will simply call race finish, like so. Passing in the character, like so. Compile and save. So I know it's a bit of a whirlwind one today, but we are doing some core fundamental logic that for the next episodes are going to make it all the better. So what I am going to do is I'm actually just going to remove Drunk Bob from the race, because I think it's going to be far quicker to test if he's not, slowly walking to the patrol point. There we go. So if we try it now, they will still keep running, and I will apparently die on the floor. We will tell them to start running. When they arrive, their counters will go up from 0 to 1, which is exactly what we wanted. go. So you can see 0 to 1, they're both on the first lap. That's good. They're running round. And you'll see when he gets to the ending and decides on his new point, it says BP NPC2 is the winner, BP NPC is the loser. There we go. So we've declared BP NPC2, him, as the winner, her as the loser. So we now have a way of determining who's won or lost. So how do we stop them from running the race? Super simple. Back on our finish race here, instead of determining who's won or lost here, I'm just going to move it across a little bit. We'll wrap this in a comment saying determine winner. So right here, we're just going to jump back to our racers start running. And right at the end, where we set the movement speed, the actor to follow, and the start AI logic, we're going to copy that, paste it into our race finish, make some space, so we can basically just undo what they did. So instead of movement state running, we'll just set it to walking, so they just walk around normal. We'll connect the finish character to it. For the set actor to follow, I'm just going to pass along this one here and delete off it, so it just sets no actor. And then over at this one, I'll just get the AI controller from the finish character, and instead of start AI logic, we're simply going to call stop AI logic, like so. And now if we wrap that in a comment saying disable running, this should now stop that NPC from running around. I am just going to come and set his speed just to be something insane, just so we don't have to wait ages each time. So I'll just come down to his movement stats, and just for this character, I'll set his running speed to something like 1000 instead. So he runs around, we don't have to wait for him to, crack on with it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, if we try it this time, we'll start the race controller, tell them to start running, they'll walk up to there. I think I've set the walk speed too slow. It will then start counting down, and you'll see go, go, go. They're each on lap 1, but he's taking off, and he should successfully run around and hopefully hit the finish line before her, even with a shortcut that she's not taking. When he gets here, it will say winner. There we go, he is the winner. He stopped running, that's all good. You can assign him to do a different state trick at that point, walk off, gloat, whatever. When she gets back and she finally hits it, then it says she is the loser. And the race has stopped. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So it definitely needs some more attention, but for the start of getting them all to run, we've done very, very well. Now, the only thing we need to do is just do a little bit of cleanup on it. So you can see we've currently retained the winner because we set the winner and we never removed it. We also set the current lap, position, and characters. We need to get rid of all of that. Clean it up so if you do click start race, it works properly. So back on the race controller, after we've determined all the winners and everything, we can now detect if everybody's finished. And if everybody's finished, then we know we're all good. So I'm just going to come and add a new function, reset race. So inside here, how do we detect if everybody's finished? The easiest way is to actually go and update our struct. So if I come and find our s_racer details, in here, I'll just add a boolean to the very bottom called finish. I'll save that. I'll come back out to the race controller, and then I will get our racers and loop over them all. Then I'll break on the array element and add a branch to the finish. If even a single one returns false, I will just simply return straight away. That's all good. Which will make it escape out, it won't call completed. However, if none of them call it, because all of them are finished, that means we're going to come to the completed where we can reset everything. So I am actually going to duplicate the for each loop down here again, and you might be wondering, isn't that bad code duplicating it? Well, we actually need to do it, because the first thing we need to say, has everybody finished? Only then should we be cleaning it up. Because if you want to show some stats screen after the race to say who won, what time it was and everything, you don't want to be resetting it when each individual person finishes, otherwise you're going to run into an issue. So now that we've done this, we can just drag off the array element and do set members in race details, just like we did before. We'll plug that into the loop body. I'll tick, I want to set the current lap, the position and finished, which I will set to 0, 1 and finished. And then I will drag off the racers and do set array element, just like we did earlier. Connect it up, connect the struct out up, and then finally we just want the index from here, like so. After we've done that, let's just give it a comment. Clean up racers. Also just want to clean up our winning character here, like so. So we just empty it out, nothing's there. The last thing here is just to simply call this reset race. So all I'm going to do is on finish, whether we determine a winner or not, right at the end, I'm going to just call reset race. And I'll connect it to both of them like so. So it will come in, it will disable that individual character from running, it will determine a winner, and then it will reset the race if everybody's finished. And then the final thing is we just need to actually set the finished property for this. After we disable them, before we start declaring a winner or anything, we're simply going to get our FindRacerByCharacter, which is our new function for today, and I'm using it a lot more than I thought I would. We'll connect it into the character. For the race detail, I'll simply break off, give us a lot more space. Then for the race detail, I'll just drag up and do set member. I'll make sure to tick the finished one and tick it. Then we'll connect it back over to here. Then from our races, we will just do it again like we do. Set array element, connect it up, and then finally we have the index right here to connect out. We'll tick size to fit, and we'll connect it across. So we'll wrap this in a comment saying mark racer as done. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So if we come and try it now, you should see that when we start the race, they will start walking towards it. We'll open it up, and as each character runs around, it should mark them as finished, and then when all characters arrive, it should reset the details. So 3, 2, 1, go, go, go. They're now running. Oh, she just took the lead then, but he's got artificial legs. You know, he's going to run faster. You know, cyberpunk legs. In a medieval game, sure. And then 1, when it comes back around, he should now call finish. There we go, he's ticked as finished, so we know he's the winner as well. When she catches up, she will also be marked as finished. There you go. And it's reset everybody's details back to the beginning. And the reason we've done that is now we should simply be able to click start race again. They walk into their position, and now they start running like so. So they've reset, they're running back around now. And then when he gets to the end, it should again mark him as the winner. There we go. And she'll come round, she'll run up and hit it as well. And now it's reset everybody back. NPC is the loser. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? Our race system is really nicely coming along. In the next version, we're going to actually start integrating the player into the race. So whether or not they decide to join, we'll figure a way to figure out if they're in the race or not, or if they're just watching. And then we'll spawn the markers in around that the player has to hit, just like the GTA ones or the Midnight Club ones. And as they come around, if they are the one to hit this before anyone else, we'll mark them as the winner, and we'll just let them idly sit by. And then as the others catch up, the player can take their money, or we can just let them wander off, mission complete, either way. So thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this was helpful. In the next few episodes, we are really going to improve it, and it's going to look really cool. If you've got any suggestions or improvements, please let me know. We will also address the AI stopping and just make them fluid at one point. Thank you for watching. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next time.